Okay, so welcome to the Node.js Community Package Maintenance Team meeting for February 25th, 2019. We'll follow our standard agenda. Let me just promote a few people who've joined in the meantime. So to start with, does anybody have any announcements that they'd like to share? I'm seeing shaking heads. So I'll take that as a no. So we'll just move on to our agenda items. I'm just going to paste in the chat the link to the minutes if people can add themselves to the present list. Okay, so for the first issue on the agenda is numbers 160. So choosing a license and choosing dependencies. So let's just see who added that in. So this was Rick. I guess this came out of last week in terms of we pulled out a number of the best practices to get started on. Does anybody who was here last week remember that that was the case? No? Okay. I mean, I think I don't see anything in the issue to discuss specifically, but it's probably we want to get started. And if anything, if there's, does anybody have some feelings or want to volunteer to start working on this one?
I did have some comments there, but I may as well leave them on the issue.
Okay.
One moment. Let me just, this is the versioning one, right?
It's number 160 here. I'll paste the link into the chat.
Oh, licensing one. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, it just makes sense that we'll need to get a volunteer to start fleshing that out. And yeah, if you have comments, add them in there.
Yeah, I'll lend a hand with that. Marbles.
Okay.
Give me
So
some.
I will assign it.
What would the action item be for that story?
Write the first draft, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah.
We don't always make it very clear who the intended audience for a specific doc is. I think in this case, the intended audience is the maintainer, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I think most of them, the intended audience is probably either ourselves as a team or a package maintainer. But you're right. There was a case where it seemed to kind of mix, one of them mixed, those two together. So
I think there is a case for the package consumer as well in some cases, or at least keep them in mind while writing the text. So something like licenses, that's very important for businesses, I suppose.
That's true, but I'm thinking that might be more general guidance. It's like when you choose your licenses of anything. Yeah. I think, yeah, you're right. We should keep that in mind. But I think the first focus would be like for package maintainers, if there's guidance we can provide in terms of what licenses and how to choose them and how to sort of, I guess, the concerns that the consumers may have will affect that for sure.
I guess there's more of an overlap when a maintainer is a consumer themselves as well.
Yep. Okay, so any other comments on that one, or do we leave it to Rick to do a first pass and we can comment in GitHub? No? Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Probably similar, 158, which is versioning. I see there's already a number of comments. This is the one that Dominicus, you were talking about, I think.
I think, yeah, sort of a. There's some of the issues they do have heated discussions. I think the version 1 is a sort of contentious part, right? Do we have it as a general practice that we write up the things? I mean, there are obvious best practices such as use Semver, Whereas the other ones, do we note that there's opinionated people who may or may not have advice on certain things, such as starting on V1?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that our choices are, we can kind of like say nothing about the contentious ones, or we could try and say, there's 2 points of view. Here's the advantages of this one, and here's the advantages of the other one. I think, in my mind, that would be useful, right? So people can come to it and say, well, some people would tell me this, some people tell me that. I'm going to make my decision based on, that understanding, rather than just choosing at random, right? So I'd say including both of them makes sense. I don't know what other people think.
I think we absolutely need guidance. And I must say, some of the things I like volunteering for, just for the fact, because I don't know anything about them. I'm
Right.
sure I must be the vast majority of people that randomly go, that one.
Right.
And I think that's where we need some help. Even a few lines, do you know what? Even a popularity thing saying this is the most popular and this is the least popular would help people. And I think most people have no idea. So I'm kind of interested in that, because I randomly choose.
Right. Yeah. Whether you'll start at 1 or start at 0.1 or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of people have gone for 1 recently.
Right. And I guess that is NPM's advice too. So.
Well, just what we tend to do just internally is we use the below 1 numbers for test versions, so people can actually release modules and just don't worry about it. They actually need a real module, but it might be a bespoke one. And all the integer numbers are, the ones and higher are real things. It gives people some leeway, because obviously we're never going to run out of numbers.
Right. In terms of what's published even.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I guess there is a discussion to be had there. So, that one started again. Is there anybody who wants to volunteer to kind of push that one forward?
I'll have a start at it, just because I'm curious.
Okay.
I think we should do something just to be shot down.
Okay, sure. Sounds
just
good.
Say, this is what I believe. Tell me I'm wrong. I can do that.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a good way to start. It's easier to poke holes at something than it is to poke holes at nothing. So. Okay, that sounds good. So 157 is the next one on the agenda. This is testing. Did I get the right one? Yes, testing. So I see there's some discussion as well. I think it's the same, unless people want to have specific things to talk about now. It's, I guess the question there was like, should we be telling people how to do it or what to do? And I think I'd agree that we shouldn't necessarily choose a winning package or test framework, but guidance around what you should test, or sort of, and then maybe, then following on that saying, okay, now that here are the recommendations, here are some ways you might do that, but not necessarily saying they're the way to go.
Do we assume a level of knowledge by maintainers?
In terms of what, like?
Well, it's easy for me to say that having unit test is sort of a very obvious thing to do once you've been around a while. And to have an unmaintained package, you have to have been around a while, because
right,
has to have fast.
Yeah, yep. Well, but I think this is even for like new modules. I think saying, there should be tests, and even if like somehow, I don't know, in my mind, it might make sense to have some guidance in terms of like to standardize how you can run those tests. Because, if other people are going to run the tests, it's a lot easier if, NPM test will always run the core tests that need to run, or whatever it is, something like that. So I think it can start, things like saying you should have unit tests doesn't take a lot of space or time. So I think starting there and sort of kind of building up, it makes sense in my mind.
I think with all these topics, like there's a context of we're talking a lot about the what and the how, but there's a context of why.
Right.
To the point about like new maintainers or people new, like just give them a little bit of why is this important as opposed to here's the steps and here's what you need to do.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that too. The why, sort of the motivation for that backs what we're suggesting is definitely important.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess next step is, again, we need to find a volunteer. We don't need volunteers for them all immediately, but that's kind of the next step to get that one going.
So I'm not totally sure what would need to be done, but I would love to get more involved in this one. If someone could maybe give an assist. Sure.
I mean, I'm happy to bounce off ideas and stuff with you if you want, but it's I think sort of write out the way I'd start anyway is to write out what might look like the table of contents for it. And then, we can start filling in and asking writing sections, stuff like that. So it sounds like we'll tag you as the owner of that one. And yeah, if you need help, feel free to reach out.
Okay, sure. That sounds great. Thanks.
Okay, let me just, I'm looking, Emily. What's your GitHub ID, just so I can assign it to you?
Craft Ninja, CRAFT.
CRA, yep, okay, got it, thanks. Excellent, okay. Next one is 155, which is add deprecate guidelines doc. So maintainers, this is continuation, okay, so this is maintainers. Proper use of maintainers in package.json, how to select maintainers, potential GitHub MD template that requires PR code for review, background check. Right, so this is basically how to manage maintainers in a project, and I guess that can get on to the even how to transition if it's not covered somewhere else. I think that's a good one.
Yeah, again, I think I'd like to take that one on.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I'm just trying to, so it's start with A, sorry. Or GitHub ID. What's that? AH, right?
MAD.
Okay, I think I need to add you to, okay. It's for some reason not showing up, but I'll fix that. Okay.
That's right.
Yep. I think I may need to add you to the group or something like that. I've kind of been adding people as they join the meeting, so we'll do that afterwards. Okay, so the next one is 150, which is pilot packages. Okay, so this is actually this is one that Joel submitted already as a PR. So add deprecate guidelines doc. Joel, is there anything you want to specifically discuss in the meeting this week?
Hey, hello. Sorry, I'm still trying to wake up here. I'm in Pacific time.
Sure. Oh yeah. Okay. It's early for you for sure.
Okay. I don't have anything specific to say. I saw your comment last week, but I haven't had time to actually digest them and just do any. Is there anything I actually need to do in response to your comment?
I think when I look at it, it comes back to the earlier question by Dominicus that it wasn't clear to me who the different sections are talking to. Okay. So I think it would be part of it's about identifying unmaintained packages, and that I think is kind of the consumer that might be guidance, right? Or what? So when I read through, I wasn't quite sure which of it is for us to say that we're gonna, here's some guidance that says it's unmaintained. I'll step back, because from my perspective, if you're the maintainer, you know whether it's maintained or not, right? Either you're maintaining it and you think you are, or you're willing to say, no, this is no longer maintained. Sure. So there's then the question is if somebody's deciding other than the maintainer whether it's maintained or not, who are they and what are they going to do when they figure that out? Is it the consumer of the module that will say, okay, I don't think this is maintained anymore? Or is it us as a team, like the package maintenance team, that is going to do something that says, okay, we're going to, if we identify unmaintained modules, we'll take some action or something like that. So for example, the npm deprecate, that's something that the abandoned unmaintained, that's something the maintainer probably has to do.
Mm-hmm.
But the other ones are probably something that we might do, right?
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. I think it's probably both for the maintainer and consumer.
Okay.
Primary, it would be for maintainers. Like, hey, if you have a package that's really you don't want to spend any more time on, or you don't have time to work on anymore, then what should you do? Here's the guidelines that we suggest you follow in order to hand off a package to someone else. And I think secondary, it is also, we should have a section for consumers. Hey, if you're trying to use a package, here's what you need to do to figure out if it's still up to date, or if you found a serious bug, a critical issue with it, and no one's responding to you. Here's what you should do to raise the issue, and who you should reach out to, or what you should do to figure out what's the status of the package and what are your options, kind of thing.
Right. So I could almost see that, like, we could have one best practice, which is for maintainers, which is like how to handle deprecation.
Okay.
And then I could almost see a separate one, which is targeted at consumers. It's like, how to select modules.
Okay.
And part of that could be, well, look to see whether you think it's being actively maintained or not.
Sounds good. I will update that, and I'll reach out to you this week and get some more ideas.
Sure, sounds good. Okay, so then the next one is number 142. Let me open that one. Okay, so just looking at where is the end of that. Okay. So I guess this is, we've got a start of a list. I'm looking at into the issue. I'm looking at this one. Actually, why don't I just share? I can share that screen, I think. Yeah, actually pull that out and see if I can share just that one screen. Cancel share. So we should be able to see that now. So I think this is the one that we have. So Express sounds like they've, have shown interest. So is MQTT, and Neb is the three that we have identified as showing interest to get started. I guess we need either Wes or Mateo. I think we're probably Wes who is pushing on this to figure out, do we want to push for a few more before we take the next step, or should we start doing things? But I guess
I think certainly start with one and keep going.
Right. So maybe I'm just going to type in to say, Wes, we touched on this briefly. Steps on either does that question sound good to everybody? No objections?
It does. And one of the other things with all of these sort of endeavors with us package maintainers, we must try not to lose momentum. And with all developers, they like doing things.
Yep.
Well, okay, some like talking, but mostly they like doing. And we should,
Yep.
and we should get going on something, even if only to learn what not to do.
Right. Yeah, I think it's true. Like since we have two, I think Express and MQTT are probably two good ones to say, okay, what could we start to get going and start to do? And so I'm definitely in agreement. So, okay, we'll put that on. We'll see what Wes says, and then we'll figure out how to get moving on the next step. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that one. Scroll down. Okay, so the next one is number 113, which is which problems Node.js OS maintainers face today.
That seemed like a nebulous topic.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like we're trying to get we're trying to come from two different directions. One is from well, what can we start doing? And the other one is, what are the problems we're going to start to solve? But it's, I guess the next step might be to talk to the two pilot ones, and see if we can get a list. Maybe the next step is to talk to pilot packages. Let's say the pilot. Okay, so I just put a comment in there saying, hey, maybe the next step is to talk to the maintainers of the pilot packages we've identified and try and get their top issues. Matteo, is that something you can set up, since he was pushing on that issue? Okay, so then next issue is number 93. Now, I think a number of these too, like all these so far, I will go through and remove the package agenda. And then whoever the volunteer is who's pushing them forward, if you want to bring it back to talk at the next meeting, just add the package agenda back on. But I think that makes sense, as opposed to just assuming they should be on the agenda again. So just discourage use of unmaintained packages.
Well, actually, this seems like an issue that the guideline that I am PRing should have made some mention of and addressed.
Right, like I think that's sort of the two parts. There was the one part we were talking about, which is as a package maintainer, what should you do to deprecate packages and so forth. And then on the flip side, what are we going to do to evangelize discouraging the use of unmaintained packages? So that would be covered by the one that would be the recommendations to the end user, to the consumers. But even beyond that, we probably, once we write that, we want to then figure out how we evangelize that. So maybe it makes sense, Joel, if I assign that one to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to say, guidance for consumers. Okay, good. Okay, and then the next one is number 17. Provide template guides automation for common maintainer needs.
Seems like Tierney assigned himself that, and there's already a branch with some work he's been working on.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, unless there's anything else that people want to talk about on that front, I think that's good. The one other one I will bring up since we have a bit of time is just the one I've wrote up. Let's just bring that up here. So that's number 139. So it's first cut at documentation for support levels. And, you know, I think really it's just a call for people. We have a couple of people who have reviewed and approved. Just need to get a few more people in there to say, yeah, that looks good. And then I think it can land. There's been a number of comments. I think I've got everything addressed that's in flight. So just want to put it on people's radar because I think it's one that we can get landed if we've gotten everybody's comments so far.
There was a mention that we probably want to add a validator for the meta stuff for the package JSON. Do we have a specific place where we want to add that, or we just publish, or somebody, for example, me publishes something?
I think to start with, I would, you know, we could just put it underneath the package maintenance repo. Like unless we think that like it needs its own repo or.
Well, if you want to publish it on NPM, then.
Because we can also create a repo under the. I think what we should do is like, you know, it's probably not that complicated a script, right? So
yep.
We can probably just, you know, land this, work on the script in the package maintenance repo. Once we have it ready, figure out where we put it. Like it could be a repo under the node.js org. But to
yeah,
do
I
that,
wouldn't even release it to NPM yet. Like just keep the code in the package maintenance until it's ready. You can then split it.
That's what you need the 0x.
Yeah. But it just seems like it's going to be simple enough that it's like grab a node, you know, grab a JavaScript script, people can pull it out, they can play with it. So I would say, like why don't we just put it, you know, put it in the as a subdirectory package maintenance / tools or, you know, something like that. Does that make sense?
Sure. Okay.
That way we can share it, play with it, and then once we're ready, we'll figure out. I think the right answer is probably a repo under the node.js org, but we can figure that out when we get there. Is that something you're looking to work on, or?
Hey, code.
Yep, sure. Sounds good. Okay. So yeah, so if people can take a look at that. I don't know if there's any others that people want to call out and have a discussion on. Let's see what other pull requests we have.
I guess just in the context of tooling, is this the only example where there might be some sort of schema-based things, or
validation,
now at least?
I won't be surprised if we think of some other information that would make sense in the package JSON as well.
No, I'm just thinking like like if something has surfaced already, or so far it's just been this.
In terms of validation, it's the only thing that comes to mind.
All right, cool.
CI/CD guidelines. Let's see, just take a look at this guy. I guess we really need Tierney here maybe to discuss this further, but seems like it's just looking to see if there's sort of still activity. Oh, okay, I think I already asked what's the next step. This one, I think, I guess we might as well just land this one, right? Like, does anybody object to this actually landing? Oh, there's, I guess, a few suggested changes. So I guess we just want to accept those changes, and then I think we can land it. So it's kind of a working document, right? Does anybody have any objections to that? Okay. just say at C. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to take a quick look at any other issues that are out there just to see if there's anything that, in terms of, yeah, go ahead.
164.
Okay, let me pull up 164. So this is npm ignore or package.json files. So here, let me just throw the link for everybody. So yeah, okay, what would you like to say on that one?
So I wrote a summary comment at the end. It seems that the gist of it is that there are quite a bit of opinions on both sides of the fence on what kind of files you should publish with your package. But as a basic practice, I think it makes sense that we have some guideline on here's how you should manage your npm ignore or files in your package.json to avoid publishing unnecessary files to your package.
Yep. Yeah, like that's one that I would like to know. It's like, if there's just a standard set that say, here's ones you just never want. I did see that there's like the tests and stuff seem to be controversial.
Right.
Was there a small set that people agreed with, or from the discussion, or is it?
Actually, by default, npm itself ignores some files, and npm also uses git ignore. Okay. But there's like certain things that sometimes people are not aware, because if you have an npm ignore, then npm will not use git ignore, and then the difference between npm ignore versus files. So it's gotten better over the years, but because npm just by default ignores some fairly common files that you should not publish with. But there's still some minor things between which one you use and what you should be aware of. Like, that's why there's still package out there that's publishing some files that they should not. For example, like coverage data, that definitely should not be published.
Right. Well, I think, like, I guess there, and I wonder if, like, could it be written in a way that says, like, here's the ones you just most likely you want to ignore no matter what, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there could be a next set, which would be, and if for some reason you're worried about the space or size of your packages, here's some other things you can ignore.
Right.
Because from the discussion, it sounds like that's where it gets into, well, that's where it seemed like there's differing views around, okay, well, does the size actually matter or not, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think maybe we can put this on our next meeting.
Sure.
I just want to ask a quick question.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't npm already have those kind of best practices in the context of what npm ignore is and isn't? And should we be talking about like npm specific use cases here versus like best practices in general?
I am not aware that npm has any like guideline on what to do. npm just document, what kind of tools they offer. Like, this is what, when npm publishes, this is what npm does, and these are the standard files npm ignore, and you can have a .npm ignore file, or you can put files in package.json. And there are certain things, like the behavior of these, depending on which option you go with, there are certain things that npm doesn't document. Maybe we can actually add these like gotchas back to npm's documentation.
I mean, there is at least one link that I know of npm best practices for developers. I linked it in the chat. It does talk a little bit about npm ignore, but more generically, I'm just asking if is it in the benefit, because npm is not the only way, right, for users to get packages and for maintainers to publish packages. So what is kind of the subset or lowest common denominator of information that a package maintainer needs to consider, rather than something that's npm specific, I guess?
Right. So,
and it could include npm things, but I'm just like, I want to refocus the issue a little bit on, things that are specific to the package maintainer or the package user in particular. And you kind of, mentioned a few of them, like, the idea file, should that be included or not? NYC output, coverage, whatever. Like those are a little bit more generic things, at least, like your coverage data, your test data. Should this issue be about discussing those things rather than potentially npm specific things?
I think it was, but it's in the context of publishing your module, or are you thinking like outside that context?
Well, the issue wasn't really clear about the context, I guess.
Right, because I think
maybe that's the question.
Right, I kind of took it as, well, the npm ignore is around what you don't want to include in the bundle that you package. Now that could be npm related stuff or anything really.
Right.
But it's in
so
that
maybe
context.
the abstract topic here is bundling your package, regardless what you do with publishing it. What should you include? What should you not include? What's useful for the end user, and so on.
Right. So this is in the context of when you're publishing, and so far, like when you publish, everyone use npm publish. But I guess with yarn now, there's a second option that you can use yarn to publish. And basically, this is focused on the context what happens when you do npm publish.
Okay.
So unless like there was no, like people are saying we should just have no guidance whatsoever, it might be easier to like write a draft of what the doc might look like, factoring in the comments so far, and then it's easy to like remove. If somebody says, well, you shouldn't exclude this, it's easy to like take that one line out and say, okay, well, do we agree that this now makes sense or not, right?
Yeah.
So I've tagged it for discussion again in the next meeting. Maybe we'll have some additional people who were in the discussion in the issue itself. But I suspect that the best way to get concrete progress is to like write a PR that says, here's what it would look like.
Okay, I will see if I can get a PR before next meeting.
Sounds great. Okay. Any other ones people want to bring up? Okay. If not, it looks like we're making some good progress on the baseline practices. Thanks to everybody for volunteering to do the different ones. That'll be great. And we'll see if we can catch up with Wes and start the discussion with the our candidate or proof of concept maintainers as well.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Yep, thanks. Talk to everybody later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.